you want to win more matches, is it better to focus on improving your strengths and making them even stronger? Or is it better to focus on addressing your weaknesses? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. Hopefully you find it helpful. If you do, it'd be awesome if you give me a thumbs up. And if you're not already a channel subscriber, it really helps me out and it's much appreciated if you could subscribe to my channel as well. I've heard a number of different coaches talk about improving strengths as being the way to go if you want to win more, and I think that applies some of the time, especially at higher levels of the game when there aren't any glaring weaknesses. You think about someone like John Isner. If you've got a strength like that, his serve was so ridiculously good, nobody could break him. You definitely want to keep on working on that because it's just impossible to play against that unless you're like Djokovic. But for most players, they couldn't deal with it. Having said that, he also did a lot of work on his weaknesses throughout his career. His ground strokes, his movement, everything else improved as well. But I think that's at the higher level. For most players, I think it's more important to improve their weaknesses. And I'll explain why in a moment. But before I do that, leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. Is it more important for strengths and weaknesses? I personally think it's more important to address your weaknesses, and you want to place yourself inside your opponent's head to understand how this works. Now for me, when I was younger, before I sorted out my vision and my coordination and developed better timing on my forehand was always a liability. It wasn't a weapon. I could roll it back, but I could never hurt any opponents. And because I knew it was a liability, under pressure, I knew it was going to break down. I knew it when I went to bed at night, I knew it when I stepped on the court, I just knew it. And anyone who played against me consistently, or anyone that was smart playing me for the first time, after a while they would see that I would make too many errors off my forehand, and they were able to play to my forehand if they were smart, and I would eventually break down because I didn't have a way to beat them. And that was the best way to beat me. So I had to fix that before I was able to become a much better player. And other players have this same sort of thing as well. For some players, it's on the backhand. And if you've played against anyone with a weak backhand, they just can't do anything with it, or they make too many errors, you just dump it on their backhand over and over again. You don't hit any shots to their forehand whatsoever. And they're terrified. They know they've got no backhand. They panic, they crumble, they fall apart, and they literally give you the match. So in that situation, that person has to address their backhand. The same thing applies to the serve. If you're the sort of player that double faults a lot, you know that when you step on court. You know that your serve isn't any good. You're stepping up to the line, you're terrified, you don't want to double fault, you know it's going to happen. Sometimes on the good days it won't happen as much, but most of the time you're going to keep on doing it. You can't fix weaknesses during matches. It's just not possible when you're under stress. And when you've got those weaknesses, because most points are lost by mistakes, simple unforced errors, we have to eliminate that first if we want to win more and if we want to become a better player. So for that reason, I always recommend trying to address weaknesses first. How to do that is a slightly different story because it can be more difficult than it gets made out to be in a lot of coaching videos. A big part of improving and getting rid of your weakness is going to be the way you practice. So I've got another video where I go into detail about how to practice if you want to improve. I'll place a link to that in the description. Another thing that's going to be really important for addressing your weaknesses is improving any aspects of your physicality, your level of tennis athleticism that are preventing you from addressing those weaknesses. And the big area for most players is how the visual system is functioning. If you can't read where the ball's going, if you can't track the ball through to contact and things like that, that prevents players from fixing their weaknesses. So to help you with that, I've created a free Tennis Vision starter program. I'll place the link up there and I'll place the link down in the description so you can start working on this program. And doing that combined with high quality practice is the way to go in terms of fixing underlying weaknesses. Okay, so that's what I think. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. Of course, any questions, leave those down below as well. And I will catch you next time.